Hello, this is Eve Stanway, breakup and divorce coach. So I was asked today a really interesting question. Why is it bad to criticise? You know, if I don't like what my husband's doing, or I don't like what somebody in my family's doing, what's the problem with me just telling them I don't like what they're doing? And it's a really significant question because in the end we're kind of encouraged to stand up for ourselves, but at the same time, how we do that really matters. Because standing up for ourselves is actually quite difficult technically. When we're standing up for ourselves, we have to be able to say what we need or say what's happened to us in a way that isn't saying, you're doing this to me. Now, why is that? Why should it matter whether or not we criticise somebody else? I mean, after all, if somebody parks across your driveway or something like that, or they say they're going to do something and they don't do it, then it is really annoying. So surely the best thing is to tell them, be open to them and say, I asked you to do that, you didn't do it, why do you never do what I ask? Well, here's what I said. I said, the problem with criticising, and you'll know this in your own life, how often have you criticised somebody and what's happened is the same problem's happened again? And you've ended up going, I'm always telling you to take the bins out or do the washing up or not to park across my drive or whatever it is. Sorry, I'm walking in the field and the dogs are here. And they still do it. So if criticising was a good approach, then it would work. But it doesn't work. And what happens is over time we criticise, and the more that we criticise, the more helpless we feel, the more vulnerable we feel, the more attacked we feel ourselves, because we feel that we're saying that we don't like something and the other people carry on doing it. But also, conversely, the person who we're criticising also feels like they're being attacked. So it's like, blimey, well, what are we going to do here? We have to stand up for ourselves. It is okay not to like stuff when somebody does something. But the more we criticise, the less it works. And the more we criticise, the more victimised we feel. And the more the person that we're criticising feels. And so what happens is that we end up in a closed loop of two people feeling hard done by and feeling victimised by the other person. And this pretty much makes it impossible to have a conversation. And so these become the grounding for difficult conversations. Because, there's no point me talking to them because they never do it. There's no point talking to you because you always criticise me. You never say anything positive or nice or constructive to me. And it's like, I don't feel positive and nice and constructive to you because you never do what I ask you to do. So you're caught then. And to be honest, this is where I see a lot of the marriages that I work with who are in conflict. There's different subjects, and it's different stuff. But in the end, it's the same. It's the pattern of criticism, because that is what makes the conversation so difficult. So, what do we do? What we do is that we understand that there's another way of doing it. You see, if I say, I feel really unhappy because I asked for the bins to be put out, and I was told that they would get put out, and then they didn't get put out. And I was kind of expecting it to be done straight away or kind of in the next 10 minutes, but it didn't happen. Wow, now we've got the beginnings of a conversation. We've got somebody who's saying how they feel. They feel disappointed that they asked for something and it didn't happen. They've got somebody who may realise that their expectations were that it would happen in the next 10 minutes, but maybe they didn't clarify that or check whether the other person agreed. And you've got somebody who is just talking about how they feel. I feel unhappy about this thing, or it didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen. And actually, first of all, in life, lots of things don't happen the way we think they're going to happen. But the second thing is, it's okay to say. But what it does is that it then communicates to the other person that you're feeling unhappy because that thing that you thought was going to happen didn't happen. And then they can say, I could have made you happy by doing that thing. Maybe next time I will do that. Maybe next time when I'm asked to do something, I'll do it. Or, I was really happy to put the bins out, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it until later on today. So I kind of set in my head I'll do it later. But then when I came to do it, you'd already done it. and you were already angry with me because I hadn't already done it. Because actually, I'm pushing the ball for my dog, that difficult conversation was about, we need to know what the time frame is, what the expectation actually is. So the beauty of having a difficult conversation where you have the conversation but you think about whether or what is actually happening in the dynamic is that we can then get more information. I call it kind of getting more juice out of the conversation. We can get more information about what is in fact going on. And then what that does is that it gives us the opportunity to clarify what we want and when we want it to happen, and whether the other person can do it and whether the other person is willing to do it, but maybe not in our time frame. And then what happens is, instead of being in a cycle of criticism, we become in a cycle of getting to know each other better and a cycle of cooperation. Now, in a marriage, in a relationship, actually even between parents and children, the most harmonious relationships happen when we consider each other equals. And so what can happen is, when criticism happens, this overwhelming feeling of disappointment means that people start telling the other person off. Now, I'm just going to talk about this a little bit because it's really important. If we are in a situation where we are telling the other person off, then what we're doing is that we're moving into a dynamic, which is in fact a parent-child dynamic. And it's an unequal dynamic. So if one person, if a husband is always telling his wife off for something, or a wife is always telling her husband off for something, then what happens is the person doing the telling off is starting to model being an angry parent. And the person who is not doing what they're being told off for not doing starts being a told off child. Because the dynamic between adults is meant to be largely equal. It's why we don't like slavery, and it's why we don't like control. The dynamic is meant to be equal because that's how you get the best and most harmonious relationships. So if a couple have moved into kind of angry parent and non-responsive, defiant child, if that dynamic's happened, well, when I see it, and I see this quite a lot, there's going to be a load of other problems happen within the relationship, because the dynamic is no longer between two equals. It's between one person who is feeling like they've got an entitlement to tell the other person what to do. Sorry, I dropped the lead. And the other person who is feeling like they're being told off all the time. So these dynamics really, really matter. And my job as a coach, in my course, Difficult Conversation, which I'm going to be doing tomorrow. It's the perils of like talking when I'm out in the field. Look, here's my dog. Look, there you go. Hero. Hello. And there's my other dog, Sky. There she is. In my course on Difficult Conversations, which starts tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching a little bit more about this. So when I'm doing it in my coaching work, I'm dealing one-on-one, dealing with specific issues. And a lot of what I do, literally, honestly, the most of what I do is helping people with the language dynamics and understand relationship dynamics. So because that's how you stop the repeated patterns happening again and again. In my course, it's going to be a bit different, because I'm going to teach people these skills for themselves so that they can start noticing the dynamics in their own relationships, and we're going to kind of break it down. So if you're interested in joining my course, I'm going to keep the cart open. I was going to close it this evening, but I'm going to keep it open till tomorrow morning, actually, till about 10 o'clock, which should give people who sign up then enough time to get all the links and everything. Go to my website, www.evestanway.co.uk, or just Google Eve Stanway. I come up, you'll see me all over the place. But go to my website and you'll see a pop-up. Join the course there. It's £99. I've made it very reasonable. I'm hoping it'll be accessible to everyone. And what I know is that by the end of that course, you will know how to recognise a difficult dynamic, and you'll have the specific tools and skills and techniques to be able to manage the communication in a way that avoids falling into the same repeated cycle. So I hope that's been useful. It's quite nice to be able to do a 10-minute TikTok. I didn't know we could do this, so I might try and do that. It's a little less daunting than lives, which, to be honest, scare the bejesus out of me. But anyway, I'm Eve Stanway. Please have a look at my website. Please join my course. Please follow me, like and subscribe, and all the other stuff that you do. I'll see you soon. Take care.